Jai Hind friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya. And here's the news for the day. Exciting news. The European Union had woken up to the fact that India is selling massive amounts of oil to Europe. So massive that India is the largest exporter of oil to Europe. Are you surprised? India has recently beaten Saudi Arabia. Now, India is the #1 oil exporter. And therein lies the problem. Europe was happy buying Indian oil. This is actually Russian oil, but after it is refined, it changes the characteristic of the oil, and the Europeans were very happy buying it at whatever prices India chose to sell them to. But now certainly Europe has developed a conscience overnight. And here are some comments that I'd like to read to you. The European Union should crack down on India reselling Russian oil into Europe as refined oil, including diesel. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said in an interview with the Financial Times. Now, Josep Borrell wants Europe to crack down. Where was Josep Borrell when India was selling fuel to Europe? Didn't they realize that millions of tons of fuel was coming into Europe? Didn't the European Union realize then? They gave permission. Otherwise, without permission, how can oil enter a series of countries, not just one? But they allowed it, and now overnight, they have developed this so-called conscience. Anyway, what happened was, after Josep Borrell made a statement, Dr. Jaishankar responded, and Dr. Jaishankar said, "My understanding of Council regulations is that Russian crude is substantially transformed in a third country and not treated as Russian anymore. I would urge you to look at Council's regulation 833/2014. So essentially 833/2014 says that any material which is taken, from an X country, and then it is refined or modified or transformed in such a manner, given XYZ parameters, no longer is of the original country, or words to that effect. This is what India played on. India bought Russian crude oil, India transformed it by refining it, and is now selling it as Indian oil, and Europe was happy to buy it all along. And this is what Dr. Jaishankar said, that please go and read your own regulations. After Dr. Jaishankar's response and rebuttal, suddenly the European Union says that, this lady called Margaret Vestager, she's EU Executive Vice President on Sanctions and Vice President on Competition, I beg your pardon. She said that no doubt about the legal basis of the sanctions, and that the EU and India would have the discussion as friends with an extended hand and not a pointed finger. So this lady suddenly woke up to the fact when Dr. Jaishankar responded and said that, Dr. Jaishankar said, we'll do whatever we wish to do here. You want to put sanctions, that's your business. We can't tell you not to put sanctions, but please look at your own rule, this and this. And suddenly the EU woke up to the fact that India will not be cowed down. And then suddenly, all these softening sort of comments that while there may be a violation of the rules and sanctions, but we will speak to India as friends with an extended hand, as in a handshake and not a pointed finger. So please, everybody calm down. Nobody's accusing anybody, and we just want to talk to India. So it's come down to that. Thank you, European Union. I'm glad you got the message given to you by Dr. Jaishankar. The Quad Summit in Australia has been called off after Joe Biden pulled back. Joe Biden had to attend the Quad Summit, and you know what the Quad is, right? A grouping of 4 countries, which is why it is called the Quad or the Quadrilateral. And Joe Biden pulled back. He had to attend, but he did not. He said there are some domestic problems with the US, and I'm sort of backing off. I'm not going. The entire summit collapsed because obviously the US president, the most powerful man on earth, is not attending. Initially, there was a thought that some equally important person or second best, maybe the vice president or somebody, would attend, but nobody's attending from the US. And the summit has fallen through. Now, this gives a lot of ammunition to the Chinese media, social media and the press. Now, what are they going to say? I'll tell you. The Chinese will simply step up and say that America has lost the right to be a leader, and America does not hold the hand of its allies when it matters the most. This brings back those dark memories of the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Americans for 20 years equipped and armed the Afghan army. And suddenly one day, without so much as a goodbye, the Americans left Afghanistan. And trust you me when I say this, the Afghan army was massacred absolutely. They were massacred by the Taliban. Many of them continue to be in prison. Many of them have been killed. Some are absconding, some are gone. They have settled in different countries. But America ditched its allies. Which is why when many of my friends, they say that while we're discussing geopolitics and national security, they often make this point that today India has so much of money, India has foreign exchange reserves. Why doesn't India sign big checks and just import stuff from America, top of the line stuff and, top of the line, hardware, military software. India deserves the best, blah, blah, and blah. And I always tell them one thing. I said, remember, never forget, America is not a true friend and an ally. America will sell you the stuff that you want here. America will take your money and America will give you the best of the best. But look how America ditched Ukraine. Ukrainians are dying today. America has not sent any soldiers to fight alongside the Ukraine, neither has NATO. Neither has NATO because Ukrainian lives are cheap. Had they been serious about the Russian threat, they would have actually put their money where their mouth is and put NATO troops on ground. They didn't do that. They ditched the Afghans. There was an entire ecosystem built in 20 years with American money. And suddenly, all those people who were in positions of authority, people from the media, translators, people doing odd jobs, people getting monthly salaries for 20 years, suddenly as soon as the Taliban came, the Americans took their planes and left. And these people who were patriots one day, became collaborators the next day. And this has been the state and the final end game for all of America's friends, which is why I tell my friends whenever we discuss geopolitics and foreign affairs and national security, never trust America. Be very careful while dealing with the Americans because one day they will pick up their bags and they'll leave without so much as a goodbye. So ladies and gentlemen, this is all that I have for you. I'll see you again tomorrow with another fresh video. Till then, Jai Hind.